At least none that we've encountered so far.
So that's like a unique thing to Earth here?
Relatively, in the way that you express it, yes.
Okay.
Others can recognize the idea of the reflective nature of those patterns being a reflection of different levels of their collective or individual consciousness. But the way that many people on your planet interpret this, as you call in a Zodiac format, is relatively unique.
Okay. My next question is, I understand how everything's happening all at once. Like, I feel that to be true.
All right.
But I don't really understand how that's possible or how that actually works.
Well, it's possible because there's actually only one moment in existence. Now. Therefore, there's only one place everything needs to exist in. Now and here. That's it. So it has to have the ultimate time-sharing program of the only place there is and the only time there is, here and now. Therefore, the different vibrations cause it to seem as if it's sharing that same now and here on different frequencies that then create the ability to perceive them without overlapping. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Well, you know, again, by analogy, that if you are watching one television program on your TV, you know there are probably hundreds of other programs playing simultaneously,
right.
Don't you? Well, don't they all exist at the same time for you? It's just that they're on different frequencies. So you only see the one that you're tuned to at any given moment. But if you change the channel, then you see another one of the parallel reality TV shows that was going on at the same time as the show you were just watching, and no longer perceive the one that you were looking at because now you've shifted your frequency. That's how it works. Simple as that.
But how is it possible that like 5,000 years ago is happening right now also?
Because it's just a different TV show. It's just a different program. You're just calling it 5,000 years ago because that's your linear perspective. That's your relationship to the show. But it's going on right now. It's just going on in a format you think is called 5,000 years ago. That's the play that's playing. Just again, as if you watch a television program that is about life 5,000 years ago. But it's still playing right now. Same analogy.
Okay, I see.
Does that help?
It does help.
All right.
And I have one more question, if that's all right.
Yes?
I'm very into the...
One moment. Let me check with the great overlords of the universe if it's all right for you to have another question. Oh, all right. They grudgingly say yes.
Have I been granted one more question now?
That was a question. So now you're using them up, asking if you can ask questions. Just ask the question.
Okay.
I will tell you whether it's appropriate or not for us to answer.
Okay. Well, I'm very into the law of attraction. And
yes.
I see it working in my life all day long.
Yes.
Usually in little ways, but sometimes in really spectacular ways too.
Yes.
And
yes.
It seems to me like there's still some times where my higher self or something steps in and kind of keeps me from something and
keeps you from
or
something.
Like kind of like ask me like, is this what you really want? Like give me
it's not
like
about
of something.
Well, there's the idea. It's not about what you want. It's about what you need.
Okay.
There's a big difference sometimes between those. Sometimes they can overlap, but quite often what you want and what you need are very different things.
So even sometimes when I'm really focusing on one particular thing,
yes.
and I don't get that, it's because it's not what I need, right?
It's not what you need at that moment. Maybe all you needed to do was learn how to focus.
Damn.
The idea is, do you trust the way your life unfolds?
Absolutely.
Yes or no? Then nothing is keeping you from anything. Everything that happens is exactly what you need at that moment. Use it in the best and most positive possible way, and you may begin to understand why that thing happened instead of something else. Remember, these things are nonlinear too. So a thing may happen in your life, and you may scratch your head and go, I do not understand why this is happening in my life right now. 10 years later, you may understand perfectly why it happened when it did. Mm-hmm. But 10 years later, from the higher mind, is right now. So the idea is that it just played out in your life in the way that it did linearly, because you're focused in a linear space-time perspective. But it had to express itself when it did in order for it to make sense to you when you caught up to the reason that it happened. So you would have the information you would need at that time by having had the experience 10 years ago.
I understand.
Make sense? You
Lot of
need to
sense,
have a
yeah.
broader perspective of how all these things are interlinked rather than such a tunnel vision of linear reality. It's a much bigger network of things going on simultaneously that place themselves linearly where they need to, because that's how you need to experience it in order for it to ultimately make sense in the big picture of your entire life, not just what's happening with you at this particular moment.
That's what I'm starting to see too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I have so many questions.
So many questions.
Yes.
Are you sure that a lot of them aren't the same question in different clothing?
No, I'm not sure.
All right. Begin however you wish.
Okay. Are there any extraterrestrials that don't have any questions, or any beings, like, do plants have questions?
Yes, but not in the way that you understand that concept. It's a very different expression of consciousness, and it isn't really something that you can relate to in the way that you express it as a human. But everything is conscious. Everything is self-aware in one way, shape, or form, even though it may be a very alien form of self-awareness to you. But everything, in a sense, knows, if you want to call this a question, that it is being encouraged to be more of what it is. So it is always, in a sense, seeking. There is always mystery. There's always the opportunity to expand, to grow, to change, to express more of whatever it is. So if you want to say that that might be a series of questions, well, that's an analogy that can work, but it won't be exactly how those different life forms are experiencing it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So consciousness is similar to a state of questioning, or?
Well, in a sense, consciousness is self-awareness. It is the first reflection of all that is of itself, so it knows it is itself. So self-awareness is consciousness, and therefore it constantly expands as the reflections in a hall of mirrors continue to expand to infinity. So everything is in that state of self-reflectivity and self-expansion. Yes.
Okay.
Now, the structure never changes. The structure never grows. The hall of mirrors is the hall of mirrors. But the perspectives, the angles, the experiences constantly change, and that's how creation expands. But the structure of it never does.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of, yes.
Kind of. All right. Good enough.
I'll have to listen to it again later.
If you
but-
say so.
I have a question about the physical body
Yes.
and how negative beliefs affect it.
Well, I think you all have some experience with that, don't you? The first level would be called stress. The next level would be called disease. The next level would be called death.
Where did the first negative belief come from?
In the moment of the creation of existence itself, if you want to put it poetically or linearly, remember that once all that is was self-aware and became aware it is everything, then it is both positive and negative. Everything has positive and negative except the one, which is homogeneous and unaware of itself. But as soon as it became aware of itself, there is the Trinity. Positive, negative, the balance point in the center. So the idea of negative beliefs are inherent in the structure of existence itself. Make sense?
Yes. How do we love ourselves if we are one? We don't have something to...
How do you love yourself?
Yeah, I mean, what is it that's loving ourselves?
You.
You?
And all that is. Remember, it's this and that, not this or that.
Okay.
You have to understand that both sides, cause and effect, are actually one experience. One doesn't actually come before the other. Both are there simultaneously. So one reinforces the other. And from your linear perspective, sometimes it can seem as if one began before the other, but that's not actually mechanically the case. So all that is loving you unconditionally and allowing you as an aspect of all that is to also love yourself unconditionally. Yes?
Yes.
So it's all that is loving itself in all the ways it can.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anything
Yes.
else?
So our body is a dense energy field?
Yes, it's kind of a crystallized spiritual energy field. Remember that you're actually in spirit right now. You never leave. That's kind of your natural state. You're just dreaming that you've left. Physical reality is just a projection of consciousness. You're playing a game, pretending that you've left the spirit realm, but you haven't. You never do.
So
Make sense?
after the body goes away,
You're just
dissolves.
expanding your focus. Because it's not really accurate to say that your spirit is in your body. It's more accurate to say your body is in your spirit. So you expand your consciousness focus beyond the physical realm, and in a sense you could say the body is reabsorbed, so to speak, back into spiritual energy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But it usually happens over time because body, the concept of your body, is a product of the linear space-time reality. Therefore, it follows those conditions. It follows those rules. Now, it doesn't have to. On our planet, at our point in our evolution, when we do die, our body just goes, it's just gone. Because we accelerate so rapidly into spirit. We leave nothing behind.
So there's less of a change in your consciousness?
There is less of a change in our consciousness, although it does expand. But we are already in our point of evolution quasi-physical, exhibiting both the qualities of physical and non-physical reality.
And you do have some time.
Yes,
in your
yes,
realm.
we understand the basic concept, but for us, it's much more flexible and malleable as it's becoming more so for all of you.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes. I have one more question.
Yes.
I had a dream many years ago about, I don't know if it was another planet, but I went to this place which appeared to be another planet, and all of the, there were rows of food growing, like vegetables,
Yes.
and everything was much more vibrant. And
Yes.
when I touched the vegetables,
Yes.
it was like they communicated with me, and they were,
Yes.
I had much more expanded consciousness.
What you
of them.
experienced was future Earth.
Oh. Okay. It was wonderful.
Well, yes, it is.
Yes.
Please again remember, everything exists simultaneously. Every possible version of Earth you can imagine exists alongside the version you're experiencing right now. You never change the Earth you're on. You change yourself, and you shift to another already existing version of Earth that is already more reflective of the change you made within yourself. But the Earth that you were on a moment ago still exists. You just keep shifting through different versions of it. Each version never changes. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
That's how you change. Because you are passing those parallel reality concepts through your consciousness. But from a linear space-time perspective, you experience it as if the change is going on outside you, in the world around you. It never is. You're changing and shifting yourself to different versions of Earth that are simply more representative of the change you made within you. You're doing that billions of times per second, literally. Billions of times per second. That's what time is. Time is a side effect of your consciousness shifting through billions of versions of parallel realities every second. Otherwise, if there was no shifting, there would be no movement. Everything would be a frozen snapshot. Make sense?
Yes. Yes. It
All
does.
right, well then go have fun with that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't really have any specific questions, so I just talk about something.
That's all right. You can make a statement if you wish.
That's fine. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was excitement.
Yes.
The world is just fascinating to me. there's so many, the physical world, there's like so many different, areas and things and everything. Lately, I've become very fascinated with aviation and, flight and all of that. Can I talk a bit more about how that works? Where does that excitement come in, and um, how does that translate into, physical world? Because
Well, it can translate many ways. I mean, when we talk about the idea of acting on your highest excitement, as we often say, we don't necessarily mean that you have to be jumping up and down and running around like crazy with your hair on fire. We simply mean that excitement can also be translated as a sense of balanced peace. It just depends on what you're passionate about and what is appropriate and in alignment with you at that moment as an expression of your true self. That's what that means. So it can express itself in any number of ways. You can be excited about being tired and going to sleep. You can be excited about many different things. You can be passionate and express your passion in any number of ways. It's up to you as a unique individual to decide which expression is true for you at any given moment. And it can change from moment to moment. One moment you may be passionate about expressing yourself this way. The next you may be passionate about expressing yourself a different way. You have to follow the thread. But excitement is the thread. It is your path. It's the physical translation of the vibrational energy that is truly your signature frequency. That's what excitement and passion and love and creativity is. Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not entirely sure why, sometimes some things excite me more than others and so on. Any
Because
reason?
right now, that's the thing that you need to really do. Again, it's the organizing principle. It shows you through what excites you more than something else that this is the thing you need to act on next. It's actually guiding you. It's actually laying things out for you in the order in which they actually need to be done that would serve you best. So if at the end of a day, when you're excited about being tired, you've accomplished only a certain amount of things by acting on your excitement, those are the things you needed to do that day and nothing else needed to be done.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I often feel very different from the rest of the people that I, meet. Like, for
Yes.
example, dreams I don't have as much, or, in terms of fear and all of
That's
that.
all right. Then that's your way.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about what that is exactly.
Everyone approaches this differently. Everyone has a different way of expressing and experiencing these things. Just be true to yourself.
Okay.
Yes?
When there's, certain meditative experiences or certain energy moving, sometimes I feel cold. Sometimes, the temperature feels a bit lower than what it was. Is there
Yes. Well,
some...
you may be dealing with different kinds of energy and acclimating to them. You may be processing them. You may be letting go of resistance to them. There may be many different reasons why those kinds of changes are experienced in the body when you're dealing with integrating new energies.
Okay.
Remember that in your science, the idea of becoming superconductive requires that your temperature be lower. Yes?
Yep.
To make sure there is less resistance to the energy flowing through. So
Right.
that might be one reason. You may be equating the idea of cooling yourself down to becoming more superconductive.
Okay.
Yes?
Yep.
Does that
makes
help?
sense. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Andrew, you good day.
So I have one question. So could you
Speak
tell,
up, speak up.
Could you tell me non-duality things? Non-duality. Non-duality? Yeah. Yes.
Non-duality.
Yes.
There is only non-duality in the one. That's the only place there is non-duality. But like I said, it's not really duality, it's a trinity. There is always the balance point in the center. So when there is duality, it's actually a trinity. And the duality begins with all that is, which is the first reflection of the one of itself that knows itself as the one. We simply refer to that as all that is. So the first reflection, the first self-awareness of the one creates the idea of the trinity that expresses itself as duality and the center balance point. But the one is unaware of itself. It's unbroken. It has no awareness, no reflection. There is no sense of an other. Therefore, there is no reflection that it is different than an other. So there is no duality there. There is only one.
Okay.
But that's the only level that has that. But it doesn't experience it because there's no experience in something that has no idea of itself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that help?
Yes. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right, then please all enjoy your refreshment break. We will resume this transmission afterward.